So okay, this is a SBQ case study for you. It's going to take quite long, but I think it's important. This is part 2 of the video in just now. What do I mean by using our contextual knowledge? So in part A, why do you think Truman made this speech at this time? So this speech, you see the inquiry question? It is actually talking about one of the factors, one of the issues that you already know. Why did the US become involved in Korean War? So jot down. Okay, why? Contain communism is one that you already know. It already should be inside your knowledge. To contain communism, right? Maybe to sphere of influence, to expand their sphere of influence, but of course they would not admit this during the wartime. And defend South Korea again, which is linked to this containing communism. So all these factors should already be inside your head, your knowledge. Okay, so communism, which means that it's the Soviets' fault, or to defend South Korea, which means that to protect against the civil war, or sphere of influence, which means that it's the US own agenda to spread their own interest in Korea. Okay, so first one, fixed by Congress, Truman, 1949, a year before the Korean War broke out. So 1949, you already know that certain things are happening. Communism is rising. How do you know this? Because in April, NATO was already formed. Okay, so this is the only relevant thing you can pick out, that NATO was already formed. So here it says the idea and principle of democracy are being matched against the practice of communism, blah blah blah. Survival program, South Korea, immense blah blah. South Korea, defending South Korea. We must show the strength of democracy, resisting communism, blah blah blah. Release communist control, faithful to our ideas, establish peaceful and prosperous conditions in the world. So it is to help Korea, right? To safeguard against communism. So the key word is containment. Okay, so based on this question, which is a why, so I write down what I need. I need my because, I need my action verb, I need my audience, I need my message, I need my outcome, and I need some contextual knowledge to support my outcome. Okay, so how do I write this? So you can say that Truman said this because he said to Congress, right? So he wanted to convince Congress that, own words, communism must be contained in Korea. Okay, so that's the main message to contain communism, which is a point that you already know of why the US was involved. So this source just seeks to bring out the point that you already know, okay, in Korea or in Asia, so that it doesn't spread to Asia. So how do you put in your context knowledge after you give evidence explain? Okay, how do you put in your context knowledge? Well, you can say that in 1949, right, Europe was already split between different ideologies. Okay, and on one hand you have the satellite states, and the other hand you have the policy of containment to combat this in Europe. To combat communism. Okay, so that is why he needed to say this. So encourage people in Asia as well that you need to contain communism. Okay, so as to prevent the domino effect of communism in Asia, the Kenneth Telegram containment policy. So the outcome is so that people will support containment policy. and resist against communism. Can so because action verb all these things together with your context knowledge that this was a period of bipolarity in the world, different ideologies fighting for gain control, US and USSR, okay, and the policy of containment was already in effect. So hence he wanted to spread this containment policy to Asia Pacific as well, to Asia as well, and he wanted people's support. So that is why he made this speech. Okay, quite interesting, huh? So that is for source A. Now we look at source B. Source B, 1984. So in your mind, you should be thinking already, this is the post-war period. Okay, but this guy is a Russian historian writing about the Korean War. Okay, now it can be two ways. Either it can be a destabilization way where it's trying to go against Soviet Union, or it can be that this Russian historian wants to write a good account of Russian history, to take pride in the nation's history based on this event that happened many years ago, because this is written in 1984. Okay, about 30 plus years after the war. So it says US have landed troops in Korea, blah blah blah, unleashing a war of South Korea backed by US, turned into an area of fierce international conflict, yet to achieve the aims of the American masters. So inside language itself, you already know it's a bit biased. Soviet and Chinese assistance to North Korea frustrated American takeover. So based on this, how would I answer the question? What is the question? Usefulness. Now you always start usefulness with saying it is useful in telling me something. Okay, so in this case, what perspective is it telling me? Because Russian historian, so you say yes, it is useful as it tells me a Russian historian perspective on this issue. And what is this issue based on the things that you already found out here? Where is it? Here. Okay, what is the issue? The issue is that, was the US involved in Korean War? Why were they involved? They were involved because which of these three is inside the source? It is of course the sphere of influence thing. So the US was involved in order to spread its own sphere of influence. Okay, it's self-interest to spread its self-influence. So this is how you use the points that you already know in your head to complement and write a proper inference. Okay, so how will I say this? I will say useful, telling me the Russian perspective. And what perspective is this? Is that the US was involved. Okay, this is related to the issue US involvement. Okay, so some of the reasons you really came up with in your head, because they wanted to spread and to increase sphere of influence or their own self-interest in Korea. Okay, then you just evidence plus explain. Simple, quite straightforward. Okay, so for this case, I know for a fact already that this is, I'm not going to cross-reference this because I know the loaded words are there. Okay, what loaded words? American masters, of course. Frustration, and is a Russian historian. Okay, so I'll just jump to the CAP. So CAP, what do I need to do? I need to tell me who is it, who is writing this thing first. Okay, so I say not useful. Again, I repeat question, because not reliable, because this guy is a Russian historian and hence he will be biased to positivity of Russia in this event, that they are not to blame. Okay, so this was after the war. So what is this context? It is after the war. So of course you want to defend communism, because the war caused a lot of death, a lot of sacrifices, and in the end it ended in a stalemate. So you cannot, the historian wouldn't want to say that Russia is at fault for starting this war and causing all this death. So he must give his justification for why he was involved. It's to defend communism, right? Defend communism and protect the reputation of his own country. Okay? So after this, then you write the agenda. So convince the world. How do you do this? By convincing the world that US were aggressors, okay, in order to achieve their own self-interest. So outcome, of course, the world will blame US, negative impression of US. Okay, so that's how you do a usefulness question. Start with useful first, then if the agenda is right in your face, you say the agenda immediately. How you say the agenda? You say who is it first. Who is it? Russian historian. Then you say the word bias. Then you say what he would expect him to say, positive of Russia. Why? Because you want to defend communism and the reputation of his country. So context, this was after the war already. Millions and billions were spent on the war. Many people died. Okay, so you want to protect your reputation as being involved because you need to protect communism. That's the context, and against aggression. So hence you want to convince people that the US were there to get aggressive and to protect their own self-interest. Okay. So let's say you want to do a cross-reference. So this one is saying that the US were there. So your criteria of comparison must be very clear. What is this? US self-interest, right? Were the US there for their own self-interest? That is what you were trying to compare, what you're trying to prove. Okay. So how do you justify this? You can of course cross-reference to here, right? This one. Okay. Mr. Acheson pointed out here, overlooked an important point. The US held on Sunday called a special meeting on the Security Council of the UN. And our military assistance to Korea was given in accordance to the resolution passed at the meeting. So the US was involved to protect South Korea against communism. And this was the agenda of the UN. Okay? So in this case, it was not the US self-interest, but more of the UN, to protect the agenda of the UN. Okay? So that is how you do a cross-reference if you want to do cross-reference. But for me, because I find that it's in my face, the provenance is so clear, there is a Russian historian and he's biased towards Russia, I can immediately put that down. Okay? So that's for usefulness question. Okay, I'm going to